Well, good evening. Welcome to the Development Control Committee meeting. It's just 6 o'clock, and I'll hand you over to Sammy for the necessary housekeeping.
Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, everybody. Thank you to all those attending the Development Control meeting this evening, and to those who are watching this meeting live via our YouTube channel. To those who are present with us this evening, I would just like to run through some brief housekeeping rules with you. Please could we ask you to use the hand sanitizer when entering and exiting the room, and you will find sanitizers located within the room should you require to use these during the meeting. We ask that face coverings are worn when moving around the room and are only removed when you are seated or standing to talk on an item. We are operating a one-way system in the room this evening, and you will see signs on the doors to assist you. We are not expecting any test fire drills this evening. If you should hear a fire alarm, please make your way out of the room and down the stairs where officers will assist you. The evacuation location can be found outside the Star Hotel. Anybody requiring help in the event of an evacuation, please make yourself known and the relevant assistance will be provided. Please could I ask that all mobile phones are either switched off or put onto silent mode. The order of presentations for each application this evening will be as follows. Planning Officer presentation, followed by technical questions from members. Agents, applicant and supporters, followed by technical questions from members. Objectors and interested parties, followed by technical questions from members. Parish Council representatives and ward councillors, followed by any technical questions from members. Then committee debate and decision. Those designated speakers, when called forward, please make your way to the dais where the chairman will inform you of the length of time you have to speak. Members, I will remind you that should you wish to speak, please raise your hand and wait for myself or the chairman to acknowledge you, and your name will be added to those wishing to speak. When called to speak, you will be required to press the button on your microphone in front of you, and we ask that you speak both loudly and clearly. When voting this evening, this will be undertaken by a show of hands. Thank you, Chairman. We can now move on to the agenda items.
Thank you, Sammy. We'll take item 1, apologies for absence, if you would, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this evening we have apologies from Councillor Annison, Councillor Myers and Councillor Gill. And for Councillor Gill, we have a substitute of Councillor Wainwright this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Yep.
Councillor Hanton. It's over there.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to mention, and no doubt it concerns everyone else as well, that I did receive a communication from Connor Taylor Bargent in respect of the application for the Albion public house.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Hanton. Right, move on to item 3. First item on our agenda for the application for the Albion Tavern public house on Lowestoft Road, Galston, and I invite George Boland to present the application to the committee, and which is on pages 4 to pages 29.
Thank you, Chair. Right, okay, so the application before you this evening is for the proposed change of use from public house to convenience store with extensions and alterations to park and layout and hard landscaping. This just contents page run through what we'll be covering this evening. So background on the application, we'll go through the site photos and proposed plans, current and future designations, retail assessment, sequential test appraisal, retail impact assessment, material benefits, neighbour amenity, there'll be a summary and conclusion, and then the recommendation and conditions. Right, okay, so the Albion Tavern public house occupies a large site on the corner of Lowestoft Road and Lower Cliff Road in Galston. The public house fronts onto both Lowestoft Road and Lower Cliff Road and is serviced by a large car park located to the rear and accessed off Lowestoft Road. The surrounding area is sort of heavily residential, with properties located on Lowestoft Road and Lower Cliff Road again. The Albion Tavern is located at the southern end of Galston there, with the main town centre located approximately 520 metres to the north. It is considered that There are sort of further establishments with close proximity to the Albion Tavern offering similar or greater range of services, and a list has been compiled of establishments within an 800 metre radius of the Albion Tavern at paragraph 1.4 on page 5 of your reports. The proposal is to convert the existing public house into a convenience store with a single-storey extension to the east elevation along Lower Cliff Road. The rear car parking area is proposed to be amended to provide 15 demarcated spaces, with one of these spaces being allocated for disabled users. The proposal for the rear car park has been amended throughout the planning process to now include the delivery area within the car park to the rear, and sufficient space has been provided to allow deliveries to take place and for the delivery vehicle to turn and leave in a forward gear from the site. The application relates to a public house which has been in operation and was first licensed in 1884 and has been operated as a wet-led pub since. So going through the plans, these are the proposed elevation plans there. So as you can see on the proposed east elevation there is the newer extension to the Albion pub, and with new signage proposed there too. The materials, as you can see, red and brown facing brickwork, white colour coated aluminium shop front windows and doors, brown concrete roof tiles which will sort of match the existing of the Albion Tavern there. A grey single ply membrane flat roof, grey painted timber fascias, soffits and barge boards, black UPVC rainwater goods and black painted steel handrails and railings, which as I say throughout the process and as the agent has stated there is consistent with the existing building. So this is the site layout. So as you can see on the Lower Cliff Road as sort of the east elevation there would be where the extension takes place. And you can see all the 15 car park spaces laid out in the car park there and the delivery area there. So you can see there's space for them to be able to turn around. So going through some site photos. So this is currently looking sort of on the corner of Lower Cliff Road there, looking up Lowestoft Road at the sort of one of the frontages of the Albion. This is, again, looking north. You can see the Albion on the right, but as you can sort of look in the distance there, the tall sort of brown building on the right-hand side of Lowestoft Road there is sort of where, and as we'll come on to sort of discuss further, is where the designated Lowestoft Road Local Centre is as a part of the new emerging Part 2 policy. Looking more south and sort of at the beginning of the car park there at the Albion, which is another access and road frontage. And this is looking to the rear of the property on the east elevation where the extension will take place along Lower Cliff Road there. Again, another site of the rear of the Albion. This is taken from within the car park and area up the eastern end, which is where on the site layout plan you see the turning area there. And again, looking back into the car park there to show you the scale of the spaces there and how we'll be able to fit the 15 spaces proposed. Right. So current and future designations. The current core policy CS7 designates the town centre of Galston and within Galston the local centre of Bells Road. Under current emerging policies UCS7, which seeks to amend the core policy CS7 and local plan part 2 policy R5, identifies 5 Galston local centres as bullet pointed here on your presentations, and then which you can see on the map there. So where the red circle is the application site, and to the north there is the Lowestoft Road local centre. So yeah, I'd say that will be the closest local centre to this site. It's worth noting though that we cannot give full weight to the emerging policies as they are not fully adopted at this time. So moving on to the retail assessment. So as a part of the planning process, a retail assessment is applied. This will include a sequential test, which looks at whether there are any sequentially preferable sites that exist and demonstrate why such sites are not practical in terms of their availability, suitability and viability. There will also be a retail impact assessment, which will also be carried out, and this will look into the impact of the proposal on the vitality and viability of existing centres within the catchment area of the proposed development. The assessment includes the likely cumulative effect of recent permissions, developments, under construction and completed developments. So the sequential test appraisal. The strategic planning colleagues recently undertook an up-to-date retail survey of the town, district and local centres in August this year. Gorleston Town Centre had 10 vacant units at the time of the retail survey, with 3 vacant edge of centre locations and 4 vacant units within Bells Road local centre. It is noted that the applications agent has referred to the Tramway Public House in Gorleston as being possible preferable alternative site for retail, as it's of a similar size to the application site and being within the defined town centre already. However, at the time of writing the report, the tramway was closed and under offer, and recently the public house has reopened, and although it is considered appropriate in floor area, the proposal is considered less desirable than the proposed site. But it is our opinion that the site is now occupied and back in use there. Within the retail survey, no vacant units in consultation with the strategic planners there were identified as being above 160 square metres in floor space. And so the National Planning Practice Guidance makes clear that local authority planning departments should not expect an application to change the retail model submitted and put forward in the application to fit into alternative sequentially preferable sites. Therefore, as a part of this application, it's only possible to compare the retail floor space requirements of the application against the limited floor space availability of the vacant units in the area, and so must consider the application as submitted under its own planning merits. It is considered the Gorleston Town Centre can withstand the proposal due to there being larger shops, good transport and access links, and other many more facilities within the centre. The impact upon local centres are considered more delicate, as due to the proposal being within close proximity to the emerging local centre of Lowestoft Road, no quantitative impact assessment can be required due to the policy not being fully adopted. But we have considered the local centre will be okay in terms of vitality and viability overall due to the range of goods and the attraction the local centre has. Reduces unnecessary trips to the town centre if convenience goods can be found closer to home. Smaller shops provide a type of experience and different from of goods despite presence of larger retailers. And within the wider range of Class E users will help them adapt to provide different types of services if necessary. And there are benefits from this proposal allowing linked trips to the local centre, which is being encouraged through the use of a 2-hour free car parking, which is to be conditioned on any approval given this evening. Planning policy requires a retail impact assessment to be undertaken where retail proposal is outside of the defined town centre and exceeds either 2,500 square metres in gross floor space or locally set floor space threshold in the development plan. Policy CS7 sets a floor space threshold of 200 square metres. The proposal results in 250 square metres retail floor space, which is 52 square metres or 25% above the threshold of applications requiring a retail impact assessment. A retail impact assessment has been submitted, which provides notable examination of the retail conditions at the Gorleston Town Centre, but has less conclusive information in respect of the Lowestoft Road local centre, which is the new proposed centre under the local plan Part 2. So moving on to material benefits. So under the scheme here, it's proposed to create 20 jobs on the completion of the proposal. There is a condition that we'll be looking to put on any permission there for 2 hours free parking, which will enable visits to the local centres nearby, as well as the site in question here. The reuse of a public house building which has been deemed unviable short-term and long-term, and a facility out of centre location with good access and facilities for nearby residents and visitors. Taking into account neighbour and amenity here, noise has been raised as a concern by nearby resident properties. The application has been in consultation with environmental health and a recommended condition has been suggested to be attached to any approval given. This is as follows: before any air, coolant or conditioning units are used on the premises, they shall be enclosed with sound insulating material and mounted in such a way which will minimise transmission of structure-borne sound in accordance with a scheme to be approved in writing by the local planning authority. It is considered that in relation to the existing use of the public house, the proposed use will not generate an increase in harm in respect to noise over what was existing. As the new proposed use will make use of the existing car park, the noise from parking will be similar and will be related to store users for deliveries of goods and for the convenience store. The proposed hours of operations are also considered suitable for the use of the property, and it has also been considered there is noise generated in association with the operation of a public house and into the later hours than the proposal or the proposed use there. So in conclusion there, the proposed site currently runs as a public house and has done for many years. After recent investigations prior to the COVID-19 pandemic and during the present time, the viability report shows the pub failing to make profits over a sustained period of time. It is therefore presented that the short-term and long-term future of the pub is unviable to be used in its current state and would benefit there from a change in operation. The main reasons for objections being received were due to the loss of public facility, noise and increase in traffic flow and parking, and the impact on existing retailing centres. These concerns have been addressed throughout the report and through use of the appropriate conditions there. It is considered that the application has overcome the concerns raised and that the Goulston has a thriving town centre that offers a range of alternative public house facilities, allowing nearby residents not to be left without a valued community facility. As a retail store, the proposal will provide a new facility for the area and offer a range of options for the wider community that is not currently available. It is considered there are other retail shops in the area within the Goulston Town Centre located to the north, which will minimise the impact of a larger store on the town centre. However, in respect of the Lowestoft Road and other proposed designations as local centres, this will be a larger facility offering further services than the existing units, and with a large area of off-road parking, it is considered the proposed use will be able to be well accessed and available to all users. When making this assessment, officers consider there are benefits to the proposal which weigh heavily in favour, principally the jobs creation from the reuse of another otherwise unviable site, and the improved access to local facilities for the local economy and community. The application is therefore considered appropriate for the area and use as required. Whilst all objections have been considered, it is noted that the information supplied supporting the application provides proof that the residential amenities of nearby residents will not be detrimentally affected. The proposal and the environmental health officer has accepted the proposal subject to the utilisation of conditions around hours of use and deliveries, acoustic deliveries and external lighting. The development as proposed is considered acceptable. It is therefore recommended to approve the application subject to the use of conditions as set out below. The proposal will comply with the aims of policy CS1, CS6, CS7 and CS15 of the Great Yarmouth Local Plan Core Strategy. Paragraphs 7 to 14, 86 to 91 and 124 to 127 of the National Plan and Policy Framework, and is consistent with the aims set out in the emerging policies of the final draft Local Plan Part 2. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, George, for the presentation. Are there any technical questions from members for the officer? Councillor Wright.
Just very quickly, do you take into account the amount of small retail outlets that there are within the vicinity of that, and if there's going to be an impact on them, should this be given the go-ahead as a retail unit?
So as a part of the, as I said, the part of the emerging local plan, there is the Lowestoft Road designated centre, which is in close proximity to this site, which we are aware of the sort of smaller units there. It's sort of our consideration that would still have a level of convenience. They're a smaller shop, they don't offer a range of goods, and to the residential properties around there would still be a convenience to popping into that shop, rather than this is a bit of a larger area there with car parking and stuff like that. So it has been taken into account, but we do feel that they would still thrive in that area.
Are there any other questions for the officer? No, fine. Okay. Right then, I will invite Mr. Jake Russell, who is the agent, to address the committee. You've got 3 minutes, Mr. Russell, and I'll let you know when you've got 30 seconds left. Thank you.
Do I need to press anything? Okay, great. Good evening, Chair and committee members, and thank you for your consideration of this matter. I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of Punch Pubs & Co, the applicant for the planning application. The applicant is proposing to convert the public house into a convenience store in a highly sustainable location, and we are pleased that the Council's planning team has recommended this application for approval. The planning team's report sets out how the applicant has satisfied the Council's relevant policies in favour of this development. And furthermore, the proposal for a new convenience store will also provide Gorston-on-Sea myriad economic and social benefits. Most notably, as the officer said, the creation of around 20 new jobs, as well as continuing to maintain the vibrancy of the surrounding commercial establishments by keeping the premises open via an alternative commercial usage. The property's car park, as the officer said, will be available free of charge to users of nearby shops, regardless of whether they intend to shop at the proposed convenience store or otherwise. The applicant has confirmed its acceptance of a planning condition which will enshrine this arrangement into the future. And as you will also note from the report, the proposed convenience store complies with the sequential test and retail impact assessment as per local and national planning policies. I trust that the committee will see the merits of the proposed development and agree with its officer's recommendation to allow the redevelopment of what is currently an unviable commercial enterprise into a sustainable commercial use, creating additional jobs and maintaining the vibrancy of the local area. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Any questions from members for the for the agent? Sorry. Any questions at all? From Councillor Fairhead.
Yes. When you're adapting the pub to fit the shop, you're not going to alter any of the outside of the things because it's an old building and traditionally it will stay as it looks from the outside.
No, that's exactly right. Aside from the extension, which, as the officer said, will accord with the design of the existing building. That's right, the external alterations are going to be nil to minimal. It will just be sort of touching up and making good any damage or any disrepair of the building.
Any other questions? No, fine. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Russell.
Thank you.
I'm not aware of anyone else wishing to speak on the application, so we'll move straight into the debate. Over to you. Councillor Wainwright.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I mean, having read the report and listened to the officer, I mean, I think it's a really good scheme. I mean, the pub has been struggling for years, basically, and if this doesn't take place, it will just deteriorate further and end up even left as, derelict, or will end up as housing at some stage, I would imagine. Tesco Expresses are, well used, and I do know people in Gorston who actually drive over to the Tesco Express in Bradwell to get stuff. So, I think it's it's a good scheme, and nobody wants to see pubs go, wet-led pubs, but unfortunately, that is the way of the world now. So I think the recommendation is good, and I would move it, basically.
Thank you, Councillor Wainwright. Any other? Councillor Barber-Wright.
Yeah, I just hope there's not going to be much of an impact on the shop that's on Lowestoft Road, because if that's going to, you know, get no business and then that closes. But there's one thing in its favour, it's not going to be an adult gaming centre, is it?
Yeah, that's a comment, yes, indeed. Anybody else wish to make any discussion during the debates? If not, we can then, we've got a, oh, sorry,
yeah, just very quickly. I mean, I'm always concerned when we have conversions from pubs into other retail establishments, especially one that's been there for over 140 years. You know, it's got certainly a lot of history in there, and it's obviously the times that we've had over the last 18 months hasn't helped the that particular industry. I do share some of the concerns of the residents, but obviously within terms of the plan that we have and within the legislation, there's very little movement that we can do, because clearly everything points to the fact that the pub itself will probably just lay there dormant, unfortunately, which is sad. But I am concerned about the impact it will have on the smaller shops, and you know, I do understand that that can't be a plan and consideration because it's an open market, unfortunately. But you know, I do feel that some of the smaller shops that have been there for a considerable number of years have served the community well, may well feel the pressure of a big conglomerate such as Tesco's moving into the area and taking a lot of the business away. And I know from the one that's in Bradwell, the amount of traffic that generates there on certain times of the day is quite considerable. So I don't think it's without its issues, and I think we'll probably hear a lot more of that over the time. But you know, I think it's been said by one of the objectors that, you know, they realise that the planning laws are probably tying our hands in some ways, but I do think we should register our concern over what the impact will be on the community shop and the community itself there. Although, you know, it's going to be a provision for some people will probably enjoy the benefit of that. My only other major concern is that with only 15 parking spaces on that site, and going out onto the Lowestoft Road, I think you'll probably find that a lot of people will park temporarily on the road and create some congestion on there, on both on the side roads and the other roads. But unfortunately, that's our hands are tied now, more so through planning laws than they've ever been before, and I think it's taken away a lot of the local decision making based on what the local area needs rather than what we see. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Chairman. I would support the application. The only concern I had when I was reading through the application, and it may just be me, perhaps as an individual, that the opening hours seem fairly early and fairly late for a residential area. There's quite a high density of residential units around that, both on the Lowestoft Road to the north and to the south, and down the side roads. It just seems to me that 6 o'clock in the morning, they can't take deliveries till 7. I would rather see it 7 till 10 personally, but that's just my personal opinion.
Thank you. Any other comment on that particularly? Anybody? Fine. Okay. Councillor Wainwright is proposed. Do we have a seconder? Graham Carpenter. Thanks, Councillor Carpenter. Right then, will we go to the vote? So the motion is to approve. So all those in favour? Are there any against? I think that's unanimous, isn't it? Thank you very much, and thank you.
So just to confirm, Chairman, that is approved. Thank you.
We move on. Item 4 on your agenda is the application for the former Virgin Media building on Low Road, Winterton-on-Sea. And again, I can invite George Boland to present the application to the committee. And that's pages 30 to...
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so the application before you here is for the former Virgin Media building on Low Road, Winterton. The application is for conversion and extension of an ex-telecom storage building to a single dwelling for holiday use. So as again, the contents page for what we'll be going through tonight there. So there'll be a background on the application, site photos and proposed plans, public comments, tourism and economic benefits, access and highway safety, impact on residential amenity, flood risk, natural environment, the landscaping, and then move on to the recommendation and conditions there. So as you can see from the screen there, the location is on Low Road. It was an old storage for a telecommunications business, Virgin Media. The access is from Low Road to the east there, which extends to North Market Road, and to the west is Empson's Loke, which members may be aware of the not recently approved, but a while ago there's been a badger development just to the south of the site there. So the application is to change it from the storage building to holiday use, which as I say within the area is heavily residential. Let's say to the southwest there and along to the east, with many residential dwellings accessed off Low Road. The history of the site: so back in 1988 there was a single-storey dwelling refused. And then in 1997, there was an application to erect the building for the purposes for storage for telecoms equipment. So before you hear are the plans. So as you can see, that as a part of the application at the moment, it's a single-storey dwelling, and the plans is to raise the roof to include a second floor. You can see off on the south elevation there and the north towards the east there is a terraced area which allows a lot more outdoor amenity space for the development there, with an open space underneath the terraced area there too. The materials proposed so far have been a standing seam metal roof, a profile metal cladding to the first floor, and timber cladding to ground floor. We will be requesting further materials if any permission is granted, details of materials if any permission is granted here this evening. You can see from the west elevation there, which faces the badger development as discussed on Empson's Loke, has no windows, and where the terrace is sort of located, it prevents any sort of overlooking, looking back into sort of Empson's Loke there. From the building actually protects that itself. And to sort of the south and east is all sort of open fields. There is a residential building, as you can sort of see if I go back to the east there, but that's about a 60-metre long garden there. So there is an element of screening on the site too. So the element of overlooking wasn't considered by ourselves. As I say, to the north there's sort of paddocks with horses on and stuff like that. So I took some site photos. We'll apologise, the application site is very overgrown at the moment, so access to get photos was fairly difficult. This is the existing building currently, and as you see, it's a single-storey dwelling, and it was used just purely for storage there. This is looking for where the access would be. So as a part of the application, as you'll see from the plan back there, there is plan to keep vegetation around the around sort of the southern, western and eastern boundaries there, but to the north it is looked to be cut back, so there is a bit more of a space on entry, and there is sort of proposed more landscaping there, but as we move through we'll explain it. We'll expect a more substantial landscaping plan by way of condition. So this is looking south down Empson's Loke. To the left of that photo is the new badger development, and to the right there is existing single-storey dwellings there. This is looking from the end of Empson's Loke down Low Road. So as you would go down Low Road there, the application site would be on your right-hand side. It is clear that it's very overgrown and looks not very accessible at the moment, but that part of the application would be to cut that back. This is looking as you go past the application site on Low Road, looking to the east. You can sort of see in the distance there is some vehicles. And I think at the time taking the photo, there was a caravan stored on the side there. And moving down Low Road, you can see there are the residential properties with vehicular access off Low Road. And looking back up Low Road from North Market Road there, again, you can see the existing vehicular use there for the residential properties. So for the application, we have received a number of public comments and objections. They are summarised. The restricted byway not suited for motor vehicles, Low Road not maintained, outside the village development limits, increase in traffic. Winterton already has a large number of holiday and second homes there, and concerns with overlooking. So looking into access and highway safety, the application site is accessed via Low Road, as said, which extends east from the site down to North Market Road. Low Road is a public right-of-way byway which runs from Winterton through to Somerton. It is a popular route for the local community and visitors to the area, and accommodates dog walkers, horse riders and pedestrians. Low Road is currently utilised for vehicular access by 5 existing residential properties to the east of the site, as sort of shown in the photos there, and to the southwest, which we can see the properties on Empson's Loke. A section of the road to the north of Empson Loke is an unmade track, which does provide access to the Low Road byway and the application site from the west. Within the public comments received, it's been suggested that this section of the track is being adopted and brought up to adoptable standard. But speaking with Norfolk County Council, Highway Authority, they have confirmed there are no current plans to bring the section of Empson's Loke up to adoptable standard, and that as a part of the residential development, Badger did fulfil all of their requirements to improve the highway there. The existing use of the site had vehicular access, and throughout the use of the telecommunications store was accessed regularly by Virgin Media. In consultation with Norfolk County Highways, it is therefore considered that there is an established access to the proposed site, and that there will not be an excessive increase in vehicular traffic movements to and from the site compared to what is existing established plan and use. Legal advice has been sought in respect to the public right-of-way throughout the planning process. In planning terms, it's a reasonable material consideration to assess the condition and suitability of the public right-of-way for new vehicular for use, but it's not a reasonable suggestion to request the maintenance of the public right-of-way, because the requirement sits outside the planning process, which is concerned with the land use, not ownership, and rights of access. Any maintenance would need to be arranged privately for an agreement of any landowners. The Public Rights of Way officer did comment on the application, and as a part of the application raised no objections, subject to them having a private right of access suitable for residential purposes, which when speaking with the highway officer was consistent with the residential dwellings further down Low Road. It is therefore considered the track is suitable to continue to be used for the purpose of holiday let use compared to the existing use, notwithstanding the condition of the road surfaces. Tourism and economic benefits. The location of the site is within Winterton-on-Sea, but outside the village development limits. Policies TR11, TR16 and L2 both support suitable forms of new holiday accommodation subject to criteria including protection of the landscape, control of amenity impacts and mitigation for environmental sensitive areas. Although the proposal would introduce new trips and potentially much greater frequency of trips than the existing use into an area countryside detached from the main settlement, it is not considered an unsuitable location for tourism letting use, subject to the considerations of other policies as discussed. Winterton attracts a vast amount of visitors each year due to its location being on the coast, and although it's for the change of use to create one unit and will only contribute on a small scale, it is still considered that the benefit the local economy by boosting the use of tourist facilities across the borough and attracting visitors, which is consistent with the aims set out in Core Strategy Policy CS8. So moving on to the flood risk, the application, as you can see on your diagram there, is located within flood zone 3. It's partially just on the edge of flood zone 3, but is still considered within at the current time. We have consulted Environment Agency and the local lead flood authority. However, the scheme is proposed to be below their sort of threshold for providing any sort of comments, and their standard advice is therefore sort of consistent to follow there. In flood zone 3, conventional residential dwellings would not be allowed, but as this is a holiday let, the sort of partial residential use there can be acceptable if the proposal includes the appropriate protection and evacuation measures. The application, as shown, as I say, does raise the roof of the existing building there, so there is sort of refuge above ground floor level, which is considered consistent with the standard advice, and also that there'd be no sleeping accommodation on the ground floor. Moving on to the natural environment there, the location of the site is within the red zone, as you can see again by the diagram, which is within 400 metres of a zone protected by the protected Natura 2000 site. The natural environmental team was consulted at Norfolk County Council, and they have advised as follows. The application is supported by a preliminary ecological appraisal, BAT report, and a Great Crested Newt method statement. The reports are considered by the Natural Environment team fit for purpose, and recommendations for enhancement are made in accordance with policy CS11 and the MPPF. The shadow HRA is also considered fit for purpose. In addition to a financial contribution, further mitigation measures are required to minimise impacts on the Natura 2000 site. And they will be, they've been attached by condition there at the end of your reports. But as follows, they've recommended basically the mitigation for visitors bringing their dogs. So they've suggested a condition on a dog waste bin is provided on site for residents, or the property should be let on the provision that no dogs are allowed. And also that the provision of a visitor information pack at the property regarding alternative walk-in sites and details about the importance and vulnerabilities of the nearby Natura 2000 sites. It is therefore considered that the reports received are fit for purpose. They've been intended for and further mitigation measures will be requested by way of condition to any permission granted. So as touched on earlier, the existing vegetation on the site in respect to landscaping will be majorly cut back to the sort of the access there, and trimmed back on the southeast and west boundaries. But the plan is to actually keep some of the existing landscaping currently, as it does offer a sort of a natural screening from residential properties there, and privacy for the proposed users. There is some way of proposed landscaping to the sort of the front of the property if you look there, with trees being proposed to plant. And however, as a part of any sort of permission granted, we are sort of requesting that there is a further landscaping plan provided to probably detail that out. So therefore conclude the proposal was considered acceptable due to the location of the site being on the edge of the development limits. It makes use of an existing building which in its current use is empty and will offer a modern holiday unit in a preferred location within Winterton. There are no objections raised to the principle of maintaining the use of the existing vehicular access, subject to the conditions to maintain these in the interest of safety. And the highway safety impacts will not be too severe, given there are 5 further dwellings with vehicular access further west down Low Road there on the restricted byway. And the current site has an existing established access, as in consultation with Norfolk County Highways. It is considered the proposal will have an acceptable relationship with its surroundings and in terms of neighbouring amenities, subject to the imposition of conditions. It is therefore recommended to approve the application subject to the use of the below conditions, as so below. The proposal will comply with the aims of policies CS8 and CS11 of the Great Yarmouth Local Plan Core Strategy, saved policies TR11 and TR16 of the Borough-wide Local Plan, and is consistent with the emergent policy L2 of the final draft Local Plan Part 2. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, George, for your presentation. Any technical questions from members for the officer? Councillor Wright.
Yeah, just very quickly, in terms of the objections, I noticed from the list there, there's no objections coming from the statutory authorities, including the parish council. Did the parish council actually give a positive for this, or did they just say no objections?
They raised no objections subject to neighbouring comments. They wanted some points clarified in regards to the public right-of-way, which was sort of passed on from we consulted public rights-of-way officer at Norfolk County Council, who stated there was no sort of objections there. So we didn't actually receive any sort of concrete objections from the parish council, and they just wanted us to take into account the neighbouring objections there.
Thank you. Any other comments or requests from the officer? No? Right, thank you. There is no agent, so I will now invite Rebecca Durrant, who is an objector to the application, come and speak. You've got 3 minutes, and I'll warn you when you've got 30 seconds left.
Good evening. I am Rebecca Durrant, and I live in Winterton. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to represent the 27 people who object to this proposal. We are concerned that we shall lose the unique character of Low Road, a restricted bridleway, and the integrity of the nearby protected sites in the dunes will be harmed. To mitigate damage to the surface of the unmade-up road Empson's Loke, it has been suggested that drivers access the new development via the east, North Market Road. This already has its own traffic issues. The local plan states 13% of homes in Winterton are not occupied by residents, but visitors, and is higher than usual across the borough. We are anxious about the negative impact this may be having in Winterton. The plan highlights the chronic shortage of affordable homes. This proposal doesn't do anything to address the issue. Opposite the proposed building, you've heard about the paddock with horses, but you haven't heard about the pony and trap. There are current problems with cars parked outside, preventing access, and this proposal will certainly exacerbate this. You've heard about the mitigation measures to avoid the flood risk and solve the dog fouling. But both these proposals could be in breach of the Disability Discrimination Act 2005. People with mobility problems will not be able to reach the evacuation area, which is listed as being above, and many people need assistant dogs. The other method to solve the fouling of dogs is to provide a dog waste bin. However, the disposal of the waste bin highlights further problems, as the owners will be required to organise a private collection of all waste materials, adding to the increase in traffic. The Great Yarmouth and Waveney Settlement Fringe Study identifies this area as being sensitive to new development because of its high landscape value, and as a result is outside the defined development limit. The proposal to enable safe access to the new property involves removing several mature trees and shrubs, and a recommendation that the hedge is permanently maintained at a certain height. This isn't in keeping with the rural nature of the Low Road, and potentially breaches regulations allowing properties to be developed outside the development area.
You have 30 seconds left.
Thank you. During construction of the building, the measures to ensure the safety of birds and wildlife are specific and necessary, but will involve an increase in traffic as the vegetation and brush has to be removed. Finally, Section 5 of the report states there is already an established motorised access as it was regularly used by Virgin Media. This isn't a fact. There is no evidence to support this. The buildings have entirely different purposes, and the Virgin site has not been used for a very long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Durrant. Any questions for The lady, please. No questions? Right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, sorry, I apologise. Councillor White.
Just very quickly, I'm always interested in the parish council's opinions, because I believe that they do represent more fully the local population there. Did you make representation to the parish council with regard to this, and did they give any comments back regarding the objections? Do you know?
I cannot be accurate in my reply, sir, but I understand several reservations were made. I am not sure of the parish council's response. I did try and find this out before I came today, and I couldn't really find anything on the parish council website, so I'm sorry I'm unable to help.
Any other questions at all? No? Okay, thank you. Appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Right, we move to the debate. Councillor Hammond.
Thank you, Chair. Move to approve.
Councillor Wright.
Yeah, I do get concerned about some of these, because I do understand the concerns of the residents, and I'm disappointed that the parish council did a bit more comments in terms of what their views were. But I just think that there is this case about holiday homes overtaking an area, not actually contributing to the local economy much, because people only stay there during the peak summer months. And I do accept that there is a need for more affordable homes, and especially in the rural areas, because otherwise you lose that local connectivity with the people. And I'm just wondering whether or not this should probably be more of a looking at as an affordable home project rather than one for holiday lets. And I think that would probably be more acceptable. So I do accept that there are concerns there, and I'm sure that the officers will come back and say, well, you know, this just comply with everything under plan and legislation again. But I think sometimes you have to stand up and speak on behalf of what you consider are major concerns. And I think, you know, I know we're never going to be another Southwold, but when you take Southwold as an example of where the local community can no longer afford the properties because it's taken over by holiday lets, it does actually disintegrate the local economy in a small way. And I'm not suggesting that Winterton or Hemsby are near that, but I think sometimes you have to stand up and say, no, I think it's enough, and I'd much rather see this as being for a development for affordable homes in the rural community rather than holiday lets.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. I do believe in the pack that I did see that prior to the building being built by Virgin Media, there was an application, and I think I'll ask George just to clarify, there was an application for a residential property on that which had been refused, I think about in 88?
Yeah, that's correct, Chair. There was the application site lies outside of the development limits for that village there, so it's not within an area where we'd be looking to sort of approve residential accommodation, and that's where the policy supports holiday use at this time. But yeah, there was an application refused in 88, and then subsequently we got the application for the storage building at that point.
Yeah, thank you, George. Sorry, back to, I think
Sorry,
Marlene,
yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
Okay, Marlene, you had your hand up first.
It's okay. No, it's just my concern, and it seems to be very covered within the report, is around the flooding, Zone 3, and I just think it's very restrictive of what you can actually put there in that place. And I think the holiday accommodation is probably the only alternative that there is to go there, really. You couldn't put permanent houses there because of the flood risk. That's just my view. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fairhead. Back to you.
Just very quickly, Chairman, I was just going to come back on the basis that if there was an application in 1988, I mean, we're talking about, you know, what, 12, 30 odd years ago, and we know the planning changes that have changed have probably been every single year in those 32 years. So I think what was probably appropriate then. I do take on board what Councillor Fairhead has said about, you know, being in a floodplain, but we know that there's always ways to overcome these type of things. I do accept it may well be outside of the development limits, but I would just wonder what would have been the case had a development for affordable homes come up in the area. Would it have been refused or recommended for refusal on that? And I know I can't put the officers on the spot in this particular case, but I still look at the question of the holiday homes, and I think it's just making a point about the need for affordable homes in every part of the area, and certainly in rural areas where the community obviously want to let the youngsters stay within their own community as well.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Hammond, I think you were next, and then Councillor Wainwright.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. We've got to assess this on what's put before us, not what someone might wish or think is before us, but what we've got presented, not some other scheme. And if it was residential, it would have to be 3-storey because it's in flood zone 3, and then we'd have it's too high. But as it is, it's a lot better than what is there. It's going to tidy the area up, and I move to approve it.
I accept that. I'll take Councillor Wainwright next, and then the officer would like to make a comment. So, Councillor Wainwright.
I mean, I'd second that. I mean, I was going to make a similar comment to what Councillor Hammond's just made, but this is one unit, one holiday let. And, you know, looking at it in the photos, this will be used probably for 52 weeks a year. I mean, people come all year to places like Winterton to see the dunes and we all agree, I think, we need more affordable housing in the villages. Of course we do. But as Councillor Fairhead said, we're not going to get that there because of the floodplain issues. But this is one unit. We're not talking about 10 units. We're talking about one. And at the moment, it's been used as a virgin storage, whatever. There's been traffic up and down there, I'm sure. I know it hasn't been used probably for the last couple of years, but it could have been. So, I understand residents' concerns, but this is one holiday let, not a dozen. And we have to look at what we're looking at, as Councillor Hammond said, as before us.
Thank you, Councillor Wainwright. I'm just going to ask the officer if you'd just like to make a comment.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I thought it was maybe worth just clarifying the situation around the hypotheticals of whether affordable housing might be entertained a bit differently. As councillors have said, we ought to be considering just the proposal before us, which is for the holiday let use, probably subject to some seasonal occupancy, so perhaps not 52 weeks of a year. If it was affordable housing, we'd obviously recognise there's such a significant need for affordable housing, especially in the parishes. But then we'd have to also weigh into put into the balance is the idea that it's outside the development limits. So the affordable housing would have to be considered by yourselves as something to outweigh the fact that it was outside the development limits. And then there is also the flood risk issue, which ordinarily we wouldn't support normal housing within flood risk 3 unless it could be proven that it was needed for other reasons, such as affordable housing. So there's a lot of things there to consider. Yeah.
Thank you for that. So I have a proposer and a seconder, so we will move to the vote. So those in favour? Those against? There's one. Any abstentions? And one abstention. So the motion is carried. Item 5, any other business? I've not been made aware of any items for business this evening. So, in that case, I will just close the meeting and thank you all for attending. Thank you.